Next definition is fire endurance rating, and the SDI manual refers us to fire rating, and yeah, we're going to talk about that. So fire endurance rating is the assembly's ability to contain the spread of fire. And it's not just the door, or it's not just the frame, or it's not just having a closing device, or having a latching device, or the door being free swinging that makes it that gives it a fire endurance rating. It's the entire assembly that does that job. And it's one thing to have a door that's fire rated, and it's another thing to have a fire rated opening. So the common scenario is a customer will call and they'll say, I need a fire rated door. Okay, and then you come to find out that it's the back of a strip mall. And because the manufacturer applied a label to that door and that door got sent to the distributor and the distributor sold that door with the fire label on it, 10 years later, 20 years later, the client's now insistent that they need a fire door, or at least most usually under the belief that they need a fire door. And I'll always ask the question, well, why does it have to be fire rated? You said it's an outside door. Does it have to be fire rated? Well, that's what's there. And the reason I'd like to ask is because it could be a door that doesn't have a door closer on it. Or it could be a door that has a deadbolt only on it. Or it could be something about the opening that says this does not need to be a fire door, first of all. And second of all, you're replacing the rusted door only, and you've got no closer and a deadbolt only, and you've probably done other things to it that would compromise the integrity of it being a fire-rated opening. Let's just forget about it being fire-rated. And most of the time, customers are okay with that. What I like to see happen is when the distributor ships the door that they don't have a label on the door unless it needs to have a label on the door. And that does absolutely prevent confusion down the road. With customers 10, 20 years later calling for a replacement door that they believe needs to be fire rated. Or from a distributor perspective, if you're selling a fire rated door, you should be charging for a fire rated door. If you're selling a non-fire rated door, you should be charging for a non-fire rated door. When you look in the price list of any door manufacturer, it's got an ad for labels, for fire rated labels on the doors. So my opinion about it is, unless your client's ordering fire rated doors, and I'm not suggesting that you remove the labels because that's a lot of work, but I am suggesting that you consider bringing in all of the doors non-rated, and then you, the distributor being a licensed machine shop, where you apply the labels as needed. You would be probably Warnock-Hersey, and you would have in your secured storage area stacks of labels, smoke, 20-minute, 45, 60, 90, 3-hour labels, and you apply that to everything as needed. Now the frames, what I like to do with the frames, and we used to do it with Kiwani back many, many years ago, every single frame was coined or stamped. You could see it. It's faint, but it was there, especially when it had been painted over. And unless the client is indicating, telling you that they require a particular label on the door, like it must be UL and it must be riveted on, a coin or a Mylar label would be certainly appropriate. But openings should be put together according to the requirements. And sometimes those are not fire rated, and sometimes they're absolutely fire rated. So from a fire endurance rating perspective, see fire rating, the definition really is as follows, and I'm just going to read it from the SDI glossary. Fire rating, a numeric designation. I'm not an expert when it comes to the history of fire doors, but a B-label door is not a numeric designation. An A-label door, a C-label door is not a numeric designation. Smoke is not a numeric designation. We'll talk about that in a moment. A numeric designation, and those numeric designations are either 20-minute, according to my knowledge, 20-minute, or 45-minute, or 60-minute, or 90-minute, or 3-hour. We don't call it 180-minute, We just call it 3 hour. Or what we really do is we say 3 hour, hour and a half, 1 hour or 60 minute, 45 minute or 3/4 hour, and then 20 minute. I've never heard 1/3 hour. And then smoke rated doors as well. A numeric designation indicating the duration of fire test exposure to which a product has been exposed and successfully met all acceptance criteria of the standard to which it is tested. For swinging doors and frame products, typical fire ratings include 3 hour, hour and a half, 1 hour, 3/4, and 1/3 hour. It's right there, 1/3 hour. I've never heard that. It's always 20 minutes. Also called fire protection rating. So this definition is going to apply to 4 entries in the SDI manual: fire endurance rating, fire protection rating, fire rated, and fire rating. This same definition. So I'm literally going to copy and paste this 4 times or 3 times. Now fire rated is a product which has successfully met all conditions of acceptance of the fire test standard specified in the governing model or building code, is listed or classified and eligible for labeling by a recognized testing agency having a factory inspection service. Okay, just want to make notes as I think of odd things to bring up. Okay, so in fire rated, a product which has successfully met all conditions of acceptance of the fire test standard specified in the governing model or building code. Okay, so that means that the door and the frame and the hinge and the closing device and the latching device have all met the requirements. And I've never personally witnessed a fire test. If I'm ever invited to witness one, I'm going to attend. But I've seen videos and I'm aware of how they work. So let's say that you are a hinge manufacturer and you want to be sure that your hinge is compliant with the requirements. What I know occurs is the door manufacturer, the door and frame manufacturer, and the closer manufacturer, and the latching device manufacturer, and the hinge guy, everybody gets together and tests their material all on the same assembly. And the reason that they do that is it substantially reduces the cost of testing. If you're a hinge manufacturer and you can help divide that cost out, that's really good. Although I have heard it said that door manufacturers whose doors or frames fail, it's kind of tough on the closing device manufacturer. So people will join together to try to reduce that cost. Now, as far as I understand it, what happens is in a fire test, like in UL, and you can probably find these videos online, and I'll see if I can actually find one. UL fire test. A masonry wall is built, the frame is set, the doors are hung, the hardware is attached. The door or doors are closed. Got it. As far as I know, the temperature of that room goes up to about 1800 degrees within 3 minutes, and it parks there for the duration of the test, whether it be 20 minute or anything up to 3 hour. Immediately upon expiration of the time, they hit it with a giant hose. If your assembly, your door, your frame, your hinge, your closing device, your latching device, is still intact after the end of the duration at 1800 degrees, and then you can take a fire hose hitting it full blast, you've passed, as far as I understand it. If anything fails, you don't pass. The reason that I understand they do the fire hose immediately after the test is because that does actually emulate real-world conditions, where you'll have firefighting people in there with a hose trying to put the fire out. Your door needs to stay closed and latched, period. If anything there fails, you've not passed, as far as I understand it. And I just think how brutal it is on the door itself to be baked for 3 hours and then have cold water hitting it instantly for that to not explode is fascinating. Now, what I also know is the door doesn't have to operate after the fire test. It just has to stay closed. It has to stay closed and latched. It doesn't have to swing, doesn't have to work. It can be melted inside the frame. Doesn't have to move at all. That's fine. Has to stay closed. So that's pretty fascinating. So moving through that definition further, a product which has successfully met all conditions of acceptance of the fire test standard specified in the building code. So whatever code that jurisdiction refers to, NFPA 80, right? IBC, whatever it is. It's that door frame assembly will be considered listed or classified. you'll see UL labels that'll say class. You'll hear class. I need a class A door. I need a class B door. I've heard that term countless times. They'll either be listed or classified and eligible. Here's a neat part. And eligible for labeling by a recognized testing agency. That's UL, Underwriters Laboratory, or it's Intertech, or whoever else does it. I don't know if Warnock Hersey is Intertech or if they're separate companies. I don't remember. It's eligible for labeling by the recognized testing agency, the agency that performed the test on your products or your manufacturer's products, having a factory inspection service. That means that the UL, the Warnock Hersey, has to perform the function of inspecting the factory that is applying the labels to the product. What that means is, let's say, and I like to use Kalani because that was the first hollow metal manufacturer that I ever sold, Kalani would be regularly inspected by Underwriters Laboratory, by Warnock Hersey, to make sure that the manufacturing process of the door that they have had tested and assumed passed, and they then have the ability to label that door, attach labels to it, to say this is a fire-rated door, to make sure that the manufacturing process hasn't changed at all, because any deviation in how they make doors would certainly require that they retest the evolved method of manufacturing. The products made therein would have to be retested. Now that also extends to distributors. So let's say I'm a Kalani distributor and I order all my doors non-fire rated because I don't want them all labeled. That's confusing. And then I've got a whole box full of labels, all the different labels. Customer calls up and says, yeah, I need 6 307 90-minute doors. Great. Awesome. I need knockdown drywall frames. I need ball bearing butts. I need closers. And I need passage sets. Or I need exit devices. Awesome. You have the ability, if you are signed up with that testing agency, to label those products, but you, as well as the manufacturer, are going to be routinely inspected. What the ULs and the Warnock Herseys of the world are looking for is that when you take a door and you cut a 10 by 10 window into it, and you're putting a label on that door, that you're using prescribed methods of how it's done. Now, what are the prescribed methods? Well, it's interesting because the manufacturer of the product has a binder that's been issued to them by the testing agency called the procedures. When you, as a distributor, become a licensed machiner, you pay the money, you allow unannounced inspections of your shop, and the way that you store your labels. There will be a binder, there will be a notebook that you have to have, and you have to record every serial number, the date, your internal order number, and what it was. At least that's how it was in the old days. It's probably all electronic now. That log is going to be inspected as well, and the inspector is going to come in and he's going to look at your last label to make sure that that serial number is one off the one that's in your book. So you, as a distributor, has the ability to apply labels to products, provided that you're doing it in the right environment according to the procedures from that manufacturer. Seco, let's say that they tested a 90-minute door for a window so big, okay? But if they find that you're cutting windows that are bigger than that, and you've labeled the door, well, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So that's what all of that means. I do have some notes here to talk about. So let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at just some unrelated, sorts of related peripheral concepts. Let's do that. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here are the definitions that we are working on. Fire endurance rating, see fire rating. Fire protection rating, see fire rating. Fire rated, fire rating. Okay, I'm not going to read those again, but let's take a look at, I typed in 3-hour fire label. So back in the old days, we were Warnock Hersey as a licensed machine shop. And okay, so Asian manufactured hollow metal doors. $139 for 3070 Asian manufactured doors. Yeah, you can always find that. Yeah, so, obviously what Warnock Hersey is doing is color coding their labels, at least according to this website. And that's extremely helpful. You're going to find color coding applies in other applications as well. Interestingly enough, if you, in fire safety hardware, like fire restaurant kitchen suppression systems, things are color coded so that you can know from a distance what the temperature rating is of something. So it's going to be pretty typical to see red. That tells me that it's 90 minute, whether it be 90 minute or wood door or metal door, red. Orange I'm not familiar with as much in terms of having seen any orange labels that I can recall. Blue, yeah, I've seen blue, and green to me is 3/4 hour. 20 minutes going to be black, that I know. Orange, I can't say that I would have guessed correctly if someone quizzed me on it. Now, let's take a look. A related concept here is they've got door rating and then wall rating. Customers are going to say, I need a 2-hour door. Well, you don't. Under door rating, there is no 2-hour. And they'll tell you, oh yeah, no, those walls are 2-hour. And you'll say, yeah, no, they are 2-hour. However, the requirement of the door be 75% of what the wall is. So 75% of 2-hour is obviously 90 minute. 75% of 4-hour is 3-hour, and so on, with the exception of 60 minute and then 20 minute. That rule doesn't apply there, but in general, that's just simply what it is. Now, if you are a licensed machiner, your labels are going to have your company name here, okay? Yeah. Okay, this is what I was looking for. Hopefully we get a good shot of this. Yeah, okay. Really, really important. This is something even experienced distributors are going to fumble. And let's pull up the Schlage product catalog in my site. All right, found that. Now let's do an ND80. I want to get to 14042. Let's find that. All right. Now, back to the label we were looking at. Minimum latch throw, 1/2 inch, single, 3/4 pairs. That is a big ouch. How many times have you sold a pair of doors that was fire rated? I personally have sold them many, many times. You've got to look at your label. You've got to know your manufacturer's procedures. This 3-hour label is clearly telling us this doesn't come up often, 3-hour and pairs, but it does come up. If you're doing like in Chicago back in the 90s, when a lot of big industrial buildings that were a century old were getting converted into condos, lots of 4-hour walls and lots of pairs of doors. So did you know that a Schlage F10 Plymouth 626 is not compliant for that? So the point of the matter is this is the length of the latch, and that is as I had said, even for us experienced distributors, length of the latch, the projection of the latch. If it's 3-hour and it's a pair, you need a 3/4 inch latch. So you pull up your manufacturer's catalog. ALX series have 1/2 inch throw, and that's important if you're doing electric strikes, and 1 inch housings, except the anti-friction fire door latch, which has a 3/4 throw. Let's actually get to this might be the D series. Yeah, D series. So this is a better shot of what you're looking at. 3/4 anti-friction dead latch for pairs of fire doors. 14042. If you got a pair of 3-hour fire doors, yeah, you're probably going to need that. Or you need to look at your label, like I had called out here. Pay attention to that. I've had, not many times, but in my career, a number of times, where people have called in a major panic looking for the latch bolts only. And I'll tell you, that's a painful conversation to have. Why is that? Well, we're looking at this latch, and you say, well, that ain't no big deal. I get it. We can't use the 13247, which is standard on this D-lock, but the 14042, I can do that. Then, customer calls me, and I already know what's about to happen. And I just tell them, you should probably take Bayer aspirin right now, Because when you pull up that 14042, that's got a $390 list price adjustment to the cost of the lock. So to put that into perspective, $390 on a 3/4 latch throw. If you're doing ND, let's just say you're doing ND80s, a standard lever, ND80, $853. So, you know, that's almost, that's like a 43% increase to the cost of your lock. And when you've got to buy those latches separately, wowza, that's catching your fingers in the door jamb. So you want to definitely be mindful of that, absolutely. So that's what I was looking for in terms of the label. The moral of the story is you actually want to read the label so that you know what you're dealing with. Here's a UL label. Well, this is a temperature rise, but still 3/4 for pairs. Okay, 3/4 for pairs. I've been thinking about creating a collection of antique or old fire labels. It's just, you know, where do you ever come across those? You know, that you can actually remove from an opening. It'd be neat to have those. So 3/4 latch. Now, let's see if we can find, let's go to the mighty YouTube. And I simply searched UL fire test hollow metal door. And that's only 23 seconds, so let's let that roll. LPS. This 3-hour fire endurance test and hose stream test. We are definitely watching this. It's 2 minutes. Fight in the horizontal and vertical test path, 20 at speed. Beautiful. So I don't know who Architectural Armor is, but they now have a pair of 3-hour fire doors. So that's pretty neat. Let's see how fire-rated doors are made and tested. Well, this happens to be SDI, so why don't we watch it? This is 3 minutes.
Today I'll be talking about fire-rated
Fire doors are designed to save lives and property.
Construction methods.
They're a vital part of a building's passive fire protection system. When they're installed correctly, they protect escape.
Today I'll be talking about fire-rated doors, including door cores, door construction methods, and the inspection process. Plus I'll have a video of an actual fire test for you. Come on, I'll show you how it's done.
Some door manufacturer. Really big distributor.
commonly specified cores for fire-rated doors are honeycomb, steel stiffened, polystyrene. The honeycomb core door is a real simple paper honeycomb core that's bonded to the steel sheet. The second most common one is the steel stiffened door, where the steel stiffeners are spot welded to the steel skins. The third is the polystyrene. However, this door here, because it's a full glass door, there's very little polystyrene in it, but we will see this door being fire tested later on in this video. The testing process can't begin until the internationally recognized testing agency sends an inspector out to view the doors prior to them being assembled. So he will come out, inspect the cores, the material, the bonding agents, the glues, the steel stiffeners, etc. So he will come out and inspect all these doors, measure, document all of the door construction prior to them being assembled. Once they're fully assembled, the inspector will initial and sign off that he watched the assembly of these doors before they go off to the testing laboratory for the fire test. A fire test must be conducted by an internationally recognized independent testing laboratory. Ratings are given in time increments from 20 minutes to 3 hours. As the test progresses, the temperature is steadily increased to simulate conditions of a real fire. As you can see, the door is securely positioned in front of the furnace. The furnace is strictly controlled and is being continuously monitored for temperature and pressure. The furnace gets extremely hot. It gets up to 1500 degrees in less than 30 minutes. At 90 minutes, it reaches 1750 degrees, and at 3 hours, it's more than 1900 degrees.
So scratch everything I said earlier.
The test isn't complete until the hose stream testing portion of the test is completed. When you purchase a fire-rated door from an SDI member, you know that your product will meet your specifications, deliver the safety and durability that only a steel door can deliver.
Awesome. Okay. Great. SDI, awesome. And I think what we'll do is we'll leave that right where it is. Okay, so there's one more note that I had, and who as a distributor doesn't bump into Hager all the time, either in a good way or in a bad way or not so amazing way. One way or another, you bump into them. Hager has had in their catalog for the 30 plus years that I'm aware of it, a good general description, albeit potentially out of date. I'm not really sure. I may be the person who's likely out of date. Showing what the different rating requirements are for typical applications. And actually, I think that is actually copied in an SDI document as well. Okay, let's pause. Okay, I didn't want to scroll through the catalog endlessly. Let's see. Okay, so general information. The IBC requires swinging fire doors to be tested in accordance with ANSI UL 10C or NFPA 252 with the neutral pressure level established at 40 inch. And then positive pressure is referred to over here. They give you different categories of doors. And that can definitely be something that you investigate. What I wanted to show, because a customer may come to you and say, hey, does my door have... You'll say, do you need a fire door? And they'll say, I don't know. And you'll say, well, where is it being installed in the building? And they'll say, on the exterior of the building. And you'll say, well, probably not. But let's take a look at the chart. And in the chart, it shows openings in so a 3-hour requirement. Openings in firewalls and walls that divide a single building into fire areas. That was that condo conversion I had mentioned earlier. Stairwells, that would be 3 hours. Stairwells typically 90 minutes. Okay. Exterior openings that have a chance of severe fire exposure from the exterior of the building. Imagine if your masonry building with an exterior door was next to a fireworks factory, that door is going to have to be fire rated. Or next to a big piece of electrical equipment, that door is going to have to be fire rated. There's another reference here. If you have a moderate potential to be exposed, that would be 3/4 rating. You don't make the decision on what is rated. That's the building official in the jurisdiction. But this is a good guide. 60-minute doors that divide occupancies in a building. Building's less than 4 stories tall. Okay. 20-minute smoke. 20-minute openings and corridors where smoke and draft control is required. Does not have a letter designation. Meaning a 20-minute door is a 20-minute door. You'll notice that Hager refers to the A label, the B label. The D label, I've never heard that used. B label, E label I've never heard used, and C label. So to me, A is 3 hour, B is either 90-minute or 60-minute, as you see here and here, here and here. C label is 45-minute, 20 minutes, just 20 minutes. So that's really handy that they make that available to you. And it's a good guide when you have a customer that you're with and they say, well, those are steel rail doors. Those don't have to be. Those can be just 20-minute doors. No, probably not. And here's here's a resource document that you can get and look to. There's going to be lots of references to fire ratings in all of your manufacturers of building hardware, whether it be doors, frames, or all of the accessories that go along with it. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So in conclusion, there are really 3 commandments when it comes to fire doors, and really 2 of them are what you're going to absolutely bump into. They have to be self-closing. You open the door to its maximum and it has to close. They have to be self-latching, meaning that when you open the door and it closes on its own, it's mechanically engaged to the frame. 3, it needs to be free swinging. Where does that come into play? The only time that I really ever see it come into play is when you have hospitals and in patient rooms, the bathroom door will have an overhead friction device, overhead device on it. Think of Glenn Johnson or ABH or anybody else who makes those. You've got hold open function, you've got stop function, and then you've got friction function. The door must be free swinging. It can't have a friction function on it, and most certainly can't have a mechanical hold open on it. That's because that friction will prevent the door from closing, is the bottom line. So I don't ever really bump into that, except I'm doing a job right now where the client ordered a whole mess of Glenn Johnson 415, 414, 413 H's. And then a week later they said, we have to cancel all of that. They all need to be fire rated. Those are all going on fire doors. And I says, well, it's far too late for that. They're already in manufacturing. But here are the instructions on how you can field convert those. So that worked out really well. Now the issue with that, and I'm just thinking of it now, which dovetails into the next concept, I wonder if those are going to have labels on them. Of course they won't. Probably not going to be caught by anyone. Probably not going to be a big deal. But I'm going to argue that taking a H function overhead device and field converting it to a stop function only does not promote it to a fire rated product. Everything on the door needs to be compliant. The door, the frame, the hinges. Now hinges, you can have steel hinges or stainless steel hinges, but you can't have brass or bronze based. The closing device has to be listed. The latch set, lock set, whatever, has to be listed. Everything else that goes on that opening must be listed. And in almost all instances, that individual hardware needs to bear the label or some visual evidence, proof, that it's been tested and it is now listed. There is a list of all the approved items in the world. If we're saying it's listed, it's on that list. The only thing that doesn't have to have it that I can think of is going to be steel or stainless steel hinges. you don't need to have a UL stamp on that, or whatever stamp for that. If you're doing fire inspections, you're going to want someone there to remove the door viewer from the door to make sure that that viewer has a label on it. That'll be pretty important for that application. Fire door and egress assembly inspections is a whole nother thing that people do. And actually, let's switch back to the screen view and let me show you NFPA 80. Okay, so let me hop back into my website and we will go to where I know I have a copy of NFPA 80. All right, NFPA 80. NFPA 80. Standard for fire doors and other opening protectives. There we go. Okay, so this is the 2013 edition of NFPA 80. That's okay. I don't remember the chapter very well, but okay, in Chapter 5, Care and Maintenance. Chapter 5, Care and Maintenance. I happen to know that the inspection points are in Chapter 5, and here they are. As a minimum, the following items shall be verified. Labels are clearly visible and legible. I've had customers call me and say, I need to buy only the label. Not happening. They're not for sale. You can't get them. If you've got a label that's been removed or been painted over, technically you need to replace the entire product. That's 1. 2, no open holes or breaks exist in surfaces of either the door or frame. 3, glazing, vision light frames, and glazing beads are intact and securely fastened and placed, if so equipped. 4, the door frame, hinges, hardware, and non-combustible threshold are secured, aligned, and in working order with no visible signs of damage. 5, no parts are missing or broken. 6, really important, door clearances do not exceed clearances listed in 4.8.4. Let's take a look at 4.8.4. 4.8.4. We're going to have to scroll there. 4.8.4 clearance. The clearance under the bottom of the door shall be maximum 3/4 inch. Where the bottom of the door is more than 38 inch above the floor, the maximum clearance shall not exceed 3/8. Imagine if you had a kitchen and you had a swinging fire-rated door there, a mini little hollow metal door, that the bottom of it is above 38 inch, you'd have to comply with that. Okay, so floor coverings. They only give us the clearance dimension there. Let's go back to our Chapter 5. 6.3.1.7. Let's scroll to that. 6.3.1.7, clearances. Okay, the clearances between the top and vertical edges of the door and the frame, and the meeting edges of doors swinging in pairs shall be 1/8 of an inch, plus or minus a 1/16 for steel doors, and shall not exceed 1/8 of an inch for wood doors. That's really easy to violate. The 1/8 inch plus or minus a 1/16 on hollow metal doors, because hollow metal doors will swell. Wood doors really won't. So plus or minus a 1/16 is okay on that, because I know when if you've got a 3/16 gap on your hinge side, that's going to be okay, because I know in a fire that door is going to swell. Wood doors don't swell. Clearances shall be measured from the pull safe of the door. Okay, so that we've talked about the top of the door, the sides of the door, and the bottom of the door. Let's go back to our points of inspection. 7, the self-closing device is operational. That is, the active door completely closes when operated from the full open position. Okay? If a coordinator is installed, the inactive leaf closes before the active leaf. Got it. 9, latching hardware operates and secures the door when it is in the closed position. Right. It needs to do that. 10, auxiliary hardware items that interfere or prohibit operation are not installed on the door or frame. Think of a door guard on a hotel. If you swing that over, and it prevents the door from closing and latching, you know, that's not good. Meeting edge protection, gaskets and edge seals, where required, they're not required to be fire rated, are inspected to verify their presence and integrity. Signage affixed to a door meets the requirements listed in 4.1.4. Let's look at that. All right, let's get up to 4.1.4. signage. Informational signs shall be permitted to be installed on the surfaces of fire doors in accordance with dot 1 and dot 4. The total area, dot 1, the total area of all attached signs shall not exceed 5% of the area of the face of the door. What that basically means is a 10 by 10. Well, what that basically means is the size of a piece of notebook paper. So if you've got fire doors and all these posters on them, you really don't have a fire-rated door anymore. And I tell customers, I'm not the fire door police. I'm just telling you what it says. Okay. 14. Is there a 14? No. 13 points of inspection. Neat. Now, periodic inspections and testing shall be performed not less than annually. That's not on every fire-rated opening. It is on certain occupancies. And that's one thing about NFPA 101, the egress standard. That's broken into occupancies. NFPA 80 is actually quite interesting. If you're a door distributor, I certainly don't recommend that you digest this, but reading a page or a passage will absolutely enlighten your understanding of your career. And this is a 100-page document. Not much of it really applies to you, but knowing where to find the inspection points, that's pretty important. Knowing what you can and cannot do is valuable information. Let's go back to the SDI glossary. Fixed stop. That's our next definition. Let's move on. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.